Let's bring in our think tank tonight to go through it all. Joining us this evening, Jennifer Brandt is with us, trial attorney. Also with us, Brian Watkins, criminal defense attorney. You may recognize him as part of the original team in the Kellen Winslow trial, Kellen Winslow II, that we covered here on Court TV. Also with us, trial attorney Jamie White. Great to have everyone with us. Guys, ladies first. Sorry, just hold it for a second, Brian and Jamie. Let's go straight to Jennifer. Jennifer, why now the arrest? Why this arrest? Because for 2 months, everyone's saying, why no arrest? So why is there an arrest now?
Yeah, Vinny, I think it's pretty clear. After we see that video and you clearly identify the people in it, there's no doubt that there had to be an arrest. So whether it's public pressure or the fact that it went viral, GBI stepped in. They said that they acted very, very quickly, which they did. And they made the arrest. I mean, it was very obvious to everybody that that's what needed to be done. Why that wasn't done back in February, that's a different story that we can talk about. There was a number of people obviously looking at this case and a couple of different people stepping aside and things of that nature. So I think now it's very clear that the public knew about it. This video went viral. How could they have not made an arrest right away?
Well, they didn't, and part of it is in this letter from the prior prosecutor who recused himself but gave an exculpatory statement with it, which is strange and bizarre. But Brian Watkins, 2 months, nothing. And now new investigators and new DA taking it over. The governor's tweeting about it. So why the arrest now?
Because it was taken out of the home court. It was taken out of McMichael's friends and family. His friends, fellow district attorneys in that county there that he used to work with, he was an ex-police officer, he was an ex-district attorney investigator. Those are his friends. And you can imagine, if you look at how crazy that letter is that DA wrote, he wrote in there that his intentions appear to be such. Intentions don't appear. They're either told to you or they're not told to you. And so the fact that he would put such a spin on it, that these three armed men had to defend themselves against an unarmed kid is crazy. And as soon as it got out of his friends looking at the case into an objective eye looking at the case, it took less than 36 hours for them to be arrested. Even though it took 2 months for them, of course, they were looking at the case, but they weren't really looking at the case. They were protecting Mr. Michaels. They did a good job protecting Mr. Michaels until it got out of their hands. 36 hours later, they're arrested.
Yeah, I just want to put on the record one thing, and Brian, this is a disputed fact, so I want to lay it out there that Roddy Bryan, who's the third person not arrested in the case, the one who's videotaping, his attorneys come out, made a statement, said that he was not armed, and he has cooperated with investigators. Got to put it out there because there's two sides. I think it may be in dispute, but what his attorney's saying, he's not armed and has cooperated from the beginning and actually gave the video to investigators at the scene. Jamie White.
My point still stands. You got two armed men.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I just have to do that, Brian. I'm not,
Sure.
because we've got the information tonight. Jamie,
Vinny,
from your perspective.
First of all, I would push back a little bit on your comment about him not being armed. You do not have to have a weapon to be an accessory to homicide. We do not know the facts, all of the facts at this point in time, but we've seen many situations where people have instigated others to commit acts or contributed in ways other than actually having a weapon. So I'm not going to let anybody off the hook at this early just because they didn't have a weapon. And I guess I also want to pile on to Brian's point. I think that it's going to be important during the course of this investigation to look at parties other than the McManiels. We know that this prosecutor, Mr. Barnhill, had a relationship with members of the assailant's family. And to the extent that that played any part, we don't know that it did yet, but to the extent that we find out that it did, his culpability is significant. At a minimum, by failing to recuse himself, he violated multiple ethical obligations that he had. And I hope the Georgia State Bar will take a close look at that. And if he, in fact, had any improper communications or acted in any intentional way that contributed to this case being delayed or, actually an attempt to avoid it being prosecuted, his culpability is significant. And I hope the investigators are looking at that.
Yeah, and I agree with you there. This is the most bizarre letter ever. But I just want to make sure it's clear that I'm not advocating one side or the other here on the issue of Roddy Bryant.
Sure.
My job here, though, is when I have information as the host and part of the team here at Court TV, I've got to let everyone at home know what the other side is saying. I'm not advocating for them. I'm not advocating for him to be prosecuted either. I'm just laying it out. I just want to make sure that's clear, and I'm not picking on anyone here tonight. But your point is well taken, Jamie. I think that's a point of contention. And that's one of the things a lot of people are talking about is 2 people arrested. What about the 3rd? But let's focus on these 2 right now, okay? And what they are saying and what they will say when they go to trial. They're going to say self-defense, right? I mean, Jennifer Brandt, they can't say I didn't shoot him, right? It's on video. No, they can't say some other dude did it. So it has to be some argument of some level of justifiable homicide or accident. And I look at that video and I'm not seeing it.
No, they said that they were attacked, that he struggled for the gun. It was self-defense. He was defending himself. That's what the father was saying about his son, that he had no other choice but to shoot him because they went into a tussle over the gun. You know what? And they also have said, and the prosecutor who spoke before, who wrote the letter, also said that this was a citizen's arrest, that they had a right to do this, that they had seen him commit a crime, they were following him, they believed that he was the burglar, and therefore they were making a citizen's arrest. Problem that they have is they really didn't see him commit the crime, and they weren't, and to use deadly force is extreme. So, but they are definitely going to claim self-defense. They're going to say that they were attacked by him, and so that's why they shot him, and it was totally an accident. They didn't mean to do it. I don't know.
Jennifer,
I don't think it goes too far.
Scripted. Yeah, this is almost scripted, what you're talking about. And you're talking about these allegations that Ahmaud had committed some burglaries in the neighborhood, according to the now murder defendants. Well, we're going to talk about that when we come back, because Court TV dug into those burglary report records. And there's a description of the suspect. I'm going to give you that description of the suspect, and let's compare it to Ahmaud Arbery. Does it match up? Does it make sense? And is what the suspect is doing actually burglary or breaking in? I mean, there's a lot of sketchy questions about all of it, but we've got the reports. We're going to talk about it when we come back.
Flint Brunswick Communications, Operator Smith.
Hey, I live out still storage.
Okay.
Break-ins out here. There's a guy in the house right now. It's a house under construction.
Okay, do you have your address or that house's address?
Right at 219 or 220 Satilla Drive.
And you said someone's breaking into it right now?
No, it's all open. It's under construction. And he's running right now. There he goes right now.
Okay, what is he doing?
He's running down the street.
Okay.
Back into the...
Okay, that's fine. I'll get them out there. I just need to know what he was doing wrong. Was he just on the premises and not supposed to be?
Stuff on it. And he's been caught on the camera a bunch before at night. It's kind of an ongoing thing out here. The man that's building the house has got heart issues. I think he's not going to finish it. So.
Okay, that's fine. And you said it was a male in a black t-shirt?
A white t-shirt. Black guy, white t-shirt.
All right, that's one of the 911 calls. And in it, you kind of reference a couple things. This is the guy that's been doing stuff in the neighborhood, right? So we heard that. So what we did is we dug into some of the records of alleged burglaries in that neighborhood. Chanley Painter has more for us tonight.
Yeah, Vinny, we wanted to look into the prior police incidents to see if they were supported by what we hear in that 911 call. On the day Ahmaud Arbery was shot to death, they were thinking he was a suspect in several burglaries on a construction site. So we contacted the Glenn County PD and we requested specifically all incident reports between November 1st, 2019 and May 5th, 2020, involving home robbery, home burglary, and thefts that occurred on the following streets: Buford Road, Holmes Road, Satilla Drive, and Zellwood Drive. Now, we did receive back what the police department had, and there were only 2 incidents before February 23rd that were relevant, and both of those incidents, Vinny, involved 34-year-old Travis McMichael, who was arrested last night for the felony murder and aggravated assault of Ahmaud Arbery. Now, let's break down these 2 police reports. The first was from January 1st, 2020. This has to do with Travis McMichael calling the police. He resides at 230 Satilla Drive, and he calls in reference to an entering auto, a theft of auto. Travis said, quote, "Someone entered his unlocked 2011 Ford F-150 and took his Smith & Wesson 9mm pistol." Now, this isn't the same truck we see in the video, the viral video. This is a red Ford F-150, according to this police report. Now, he also tells the police that his father had entered the truck a couple hours earlier, didn't lock it back, and when he went back out around 11 a.m. that morning, just the holster was left on the seat of the truck. His pistol was missing. The police report goes on to say that, quote, "latent fingerprints yielded negative results." Okay, so fast forward to February 11th, 2020. That's the second incident the police department handed over to Court TV. This one also initiated by Travis McMichael. Let's take a look at this report. First, it says around 7:30 that night, Travis Michael calls 911. He calls in for a trespassing on Larry English's property at 220 Satilla Drive. This is that same property that is under construction that is mentioned in that 911 call. So this police report is in reference to, quote, "an unknown black male trespassing within the construction site of a new home being built on said property." Now, here's the description. This is the key part of this police report. The description of the suspect: a lighter-skinned black male, slender build, approximately 5'10" to 6 feet tall. Both arms look to be covered in tattoos. The male has 3 to 4 inch twist or dread hairstyle. Now, the property owner says, quote, "the security cameras show the male inside the construction site and that the male appeared to be the same unknown male from all previous incidents. Further, the male is, quote, only trespassing and plundering around as he has yet to see where anything has been taken." These videos and the description of this unknown male, Vinny, interestingly, have been distributed throughout this neighborhood. There's apparently a Facebook page that residents of this neighborhood can join, and they circulated this suspect's description and this security camera video of what the suspect looked like throughout the neighborhood. They were all, if they had Facebook, were aware of this suspect. So again, these are the 2 incidents in the time frame that we requested from that neighborhood, and it's interesting to compare this to what we know now.
Thanks so much, Chanley. Thank you, Chanley. All right, let's take a look at this description. Bring in our think tank. We got a great one tonight. Jamie White, I'll start with you. Lighter-skinned black male, slender build, 5'10" to 6 feet tall. Both arms look to be covered in tattoos, and 3 to 4 inch twisted dreads hairstyle. To me, that's one of the key facts here, because I've seen all the pictures I've seen of Ahmaud. I don't see twisted dreads hairstyle. I saw one photo with that exposed his right arm. I saw a tattoo, and they describe him as a lighter-skinned black male. Your thoughts, Jamie, on the description and whether or not that matches Ahmaud, and then we'll take it to the next level after that.
Well, it clearly does not match this young man, but we've heard this story before, right? The black guy did it, and we get all sorts of presumptions and so on. The extraordinary thing about this story, I think, is the reports by Travis. Because if they're going to present a self-defense argument, they have to do it credibly. And one of the things that will need to be taken into accountability is their state of mind at the time that this event occurred and what they did after the fact. And we know what they did after the fact. We know that now they've exaggerated events to the police. They've left out important information that should have been incorporated in that report, i.e., that Travis was, the quote unquote victim on at least 2 occasions. I was aware of the January 1st incident. This is the first I've heard about February 11th. But what I would love to see, and I suspect the investigators are going to look into this, what was Travis's behavior between January 1st and February 23rd? Was he actively engaged on Facebook in a rage and talking about getting even with people? Was he having these conversations with friends and family? Because that would go to his state of mind, and it would certainly contradict any idea that he was acting appropriately and defending himself justifiably.
It's fascinating, Jamie. Brian Watkins, this is an important issue that we know is going to get blown up really large during the course of this case. These reports of these burglaries, does it reveal more about Ahmaud, or does it reveal more about Travis McMichael?
Really, it's irrelevant, and I'm going to tell you why. This is court TV. This is a system we have a system of laws, and we have courts to deal with these when someone breaks a law. Private citizens do not have the right to conduct their own investigations, develop their own probable cause, develop their own suspects in a case, and then go down there and chase them down with guns and do anything to them, stop them from questioning, detain them, arrest them, or anything. That's outrageous that these individuals, Mr. McMichaels, would do their own investigation, come up with their own conclusions that this is the guy, even though it obviously doesn't fit the description, and then go and try to chase him down and make a citizen's arrest, armed at that. I mean, that's what the police are for. This is called vigilante justice, and you don't have a self-defense case when you're doing vigilante justice. You thought this guy took something out of your truck, you see him a day or 2 later, and you want to go enact revenge, arrest him, do whatever. You don't have the right to do that.
You know, it's fascinating, Jennifer, about the reports, and what's not clear to me, if someone went into his truck and took the gun, right? Well, first of all, I don't think gun owners should leave guns in unlocked cars, but that's just my opinion. But I know people don't have a right to go into your unlocked car, but I wouldn't think a responsible gun owner would leave a gun in an unlocked car, but it happens. Okay, you shouldn't go in the car, whoever did it. But I'm not clear if the person on the so-called video recordings are the ones that went into his car or just someone that they saw at a construction site.
Exactly.
And I don't know
that's
if
the thing.
McMichael is conflating these events in his mind. Are they being conflated in his mind?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing that says in the police report about a description of anybody that went into the vehicle. So we have no idea who that might have been. We do know his father was kind of in and out of his vehicle. So who knows what happened there. And what's more disturbing, Vinny, is that, looking at this whole scenario, these guys were like in this truck chasing Ahmaud down the street. They were out clearly looking for somebody. I mean, the truck was kind of parked in the middle of the street, in the middle of the day. They were out there searching around, looking to, as Brian pointed out, like vigilante justice. They're looking to get somebody. They had it in their mind clearly that there was someone out in the neighborhood doing bad things. And poor Ahmaud, jogging along, getting his exercise, he becomes the target, unfortunately. But they weren't sitting back. They did call 911, but it was sort of after the fact. Someone called 911. And yet they're out there in their car looking around with guns, rifles, trying to find someone who's going around a construction site. And by the way, the guy that owns the house that was being built says he's really sorry that any of this happened. He wasn't even the one that was upset about it or going after anybody or making police reports. And that's his own property. So he's just really distraught over the whole situation.
I'll tell you what, I would get in trouble. You know how many houses under construction that my wife and I have walked through just out of curiosity? Hey, let's take a peek.
Right. Pretty scary, right?
Unbelievable. When we come back, we've got another story to talk about, but also, folks, go on our Facebook pages. Let us know what you think about this one, because we're going to get back to it before the end of the hour. But we're going to take some time to find out what's going on. We've got developments in the case involving the death of little baby Evelyn in Tennessee. Don't go anywhere. Baby Evelyn was found dead on property belonging to her family. And when I say her family, you're talking about her mom lived there at times, her grandma lived there at times, and her grandfather. I think she's got an uncle there as well. It's a very confusing family situation because it's property that has a couple different places to live, a main house and then another house, and who's living there when is kind of vague. But we do know baby Evelyn was found on the property. And we do know it took a while for anyone to report her missing. And we do know that her mother lied about where she was. And we know that her mother, teenage mother, has been in custody for that lie and has been waiting for the indictment, the preliminary hearing, all of that to happen. Well, she was back in court. Ted Rollins brings us up to speed in what's happening in the case involving the death of baby Evelyn.
From inside the Sullivan County, Tennessee courthouse jail, wearing stripes, 18-year-old Megan Boswell sits down in front of the camera for what is expected to be an arraignment on charges for reporting false information. But prosecutor Teresa Nelson tells the judge she needs more time.
There's more than probably 25 hours of just video interview of the defendant. And it is necessary for me to review all of that material before that case is presented to the grand jury.
Evelyn. Hi.
Megan Boswell's 15-month-old daughter Evelyn, a beautiful blue-eyed toddler, was reported missing in February, but hadn't actually been seen since late 2019. Teenage mom Megan's story at the time did not add up.
I've told TBI where to find her in Mendota. My mom took her to a campground and a silver camper, and if they don't go tonight, I'm going to go find her myself. I just want her back. That's all I want. I've been so long without her, and I know a lot of people are like, oh, why didn't you report it missing earlier? Because my mom threatened me, and I just want her back.
Then on March 6th, investigators got a tip to search the property of Megan's grandfather, the one who originally reported little Evelyn missing.
During the search, investigators discovered human remains believed to be those of a 15-month-old girl.
The investigation focused not only on teen mom Megan, but also on her mother, Angela Boswell, who, over the next few weeks, would be arrested multiple times. On March 25th, Boswell and her companion, Larry Chad Fields, were charged with aggravated burglary for allegedly stealing electronics from her father's house. It was Angela's second arrest in less than a month. A few weeks earlier, she was allegedly caught shoplifting at a Walmart. Who is responsible for Evelyn's death is still unclear. Tommy Boswell Sr., the one who reported her missing February 18th, told investigators that he hadn't seen baby Evelyn since Thanksgiving.
Tommy hasn't really explained his delay in reporting it. What he told law enforcement was that at some point Megan had left his home with Evelyn, that his mother, Evelyn's great-grandmother, had babysitted the child for a little bit, but then that Megan left with the child, and then he later starts asking questions about where the child is and couldn't get a straight answer from either Megan or his ex-wife, Angela.
Investigators say they have several suspects in Evelyn's death. At the top of the list seems to be her teenage mother, Megan, who, at least for now, remains in a Tennessee jail.
All right, how do we get to the bottom of this? You know, police from the beginning have said they have persons of interest, but it seems obvious where you could look is the people closest to baby Evelyn. Brian Watkins, let me ask you, you've got a mother who's lying. Grandpa reported her missing, but it's his property that I guess that he officially owns where she was found. And then you've got Grandma, who's been arrested 3 times since baby Evelyn went missing with a couple different boyfriends. How are they going to figure this out?
No, they should treat them like they do my criminal drug clients. You know, when you have a cartel type of situation going, they arrest everybody and charge them all with being the leader of the drug cartel, and then let one by one they'll start to snitch and tell what really happened, and it helps fill in the pieces of their investigation. They should arrest them all and charge them all with murder, and then put some heat on them and then find out what's going on. I mean, they'll start to talk. There's no loyalty among them. There's no loyalty among thieves. Definitely not loyalty among baby killers.
Jennifer, Megan Boswell is a teenage mother. She's young. She did a couple of media interviews while the baby was reportedly missing. 25 hours of interviews is what the prosecutor said they have. Will that reveal what happened here in something that she says or something that she doesn't say?
Perhaps, because her stories have been sort of all over the place. She's told a lot of different stories. So maybe throughout all these interviews, there is a grain of truth in them. You know, once you get hearing all different things, if they follow some of the leads that maybe she gives or some of the information that she gives, maybe they'll get to the bottom of it. But, you know, there's a small chance here, Vinny, that maybe she doesn't even know what happened. I mean, the baby was found on her father's property, and it seems like a lot of different people were there and living there, and she doesn't seem to know where the baby went. It's quite a mess, a lot of chaos, a lot of different people involved. So I think that the prosecutor's right. She has to get through all those interviews and hear exactly what Megan has to say, and perhaps something comes out in there. But again, it's a bit of a mess. And to get to the bottom of it, I don't know if I agree with Brian. I don't know if arresting all of them is the right thing to do. I think you got to hear all their stories and try to cull through that information to find out what really happened here.
Jamie, based upon all the legal troubles that many of the people in the family have had and some still continue to have, are you surprised that no one has pointed the finger directly at someone else in this family? Or do you think maybe the blood just is thicker than anything else in this family?
No, I'm not surprised. You know, we've seen situations before. This woman is not a sympathetic figure. Obviously, this baby was beautiful. And if she was harmed intentionally or neglected to the point where she died, somebody needs to be held accountable. But I think until we get the forensic evidence, which is my understanding has not been produced yet, the autopsy, I don't know if that will yield significant results. But, you know, it's possible that this child died of some consequences that were not intentional. We've seen young mothers, young troubled mothers. It's my understanding this woman is pregnant again at the age of 18, clearly has a checkered past as it relates to her family. So I don't think we could rule out that we have an irresponsible mother or other adult who panicked. But it's unlikely. I'll concede that. I like Brian's idea. It probably would be effective. But I think until we get the forensic evidence, we should withhold any ultimate judgment.
All right. When we come back, we're going to go back to that story in Georgia. The 13th juror reacting to everything in that case, from the videotape to the arrest to the delay in the arrest and exactly what's going on. We'll hear from you when we come back.
The day he would have been 26 years old. And so they really hurt behind it because me and his mother, we celebrate all our children's birthdays. You know, they grown now, but we always hand them money or something, you know, for their birthday. We don't miss their birthdays, me and her.
I'd like to start by saying I was always proud to be his older sister. He was easygoing, loving, generous, humorous, and overall what he showed that day, he was brave. Just an overall good person. He wanted to be an electrician. That's what he was aspiring to be.
And his family and the country deserves justice, and they deserve it now.
He didn't deserve that because he was a very good young man. I can truly say that from the bottom of my heart. And everybody that knowed him knowed his heart.
Ahmaud Arbery, would be 26 today. It's heartbreaking, but at least some level of, at least the first step of justice for his family, as an arrest was finally made after 2 months. Your reaction today on social media. We begin with our comment of the day from Pam, who writes, "Finally, while I firmly believe this was racially motivated as there was no crime committed here by this young man, also equally terrifying was how deep the corruption went in this case. On a broader scope, I think it also highlights the fact that many seem to think it's okay to kill someone committing a burglary. How is that even slightly reasonable?" I want to go on this corruption angle. Jamie White, you spoke about this a little bit before. Do you think that is a potential here, that there could potentially be an investigation into the way this was initially handled?
I think it would be negligent to not investigate how it was initially handled. Again, clearly we have relationships between the prosecuting attorney who chose not to prosecute this case and the assailant's family. And his decisions to not prosecute were just completely an abuse of power. So there has to be an investigation in that regard.
Evelyn writes tonight, why, and a lot of people are asking this, why no hate crime in Georgia? They blatantly tracked this young man. I see one man following and filming and two men attacking this young man. Brian, this is now a felony murder case, which in Georgia, life without parole. If you're found guilty, that's what you potentially face. If there was a hate crime law down here, how would that change the way this case is prosecuted?
Well, most hate crime laws are usually prosecuted by the feds. It would carry the same punishment, and it's a tough case to make it a hate crime, I believe, because I think it was more vigilante justice that whoever was robbing or breaking into cars around our neighborhood, we're going to get them, and we think it's this guy, and we got him. And so I don't know if they'd be able to make it solely based on his race that they kill him, versus vigilante justice type of situation.
Juan writing tonight, did all three people involved in this shooting come from the same home, or the father, son not related to the third person, or do they know each other, neighbors? We're not quite sure of the relationship. We know they're neighbors for sure. The level of their relationship, we don't know. But again, that's all going to come out during the course of this investigation. Let's get to the next comment from Christina, who writes, just remember, they didn't arrest them because they saw the tape. All the DAs recused themselves due to conflict of interest. They arrested them because we saw the tape, Jennifer. I think that is such an incredible observation. They saw the tape for 2 months. We saw the tape,
Exactly.
Then they get arrested.
Yeah, as we talked about before, I think it was definitely public pressure. Once this went on Facebook and went viral and all the stations picked it up, I think that's when they brought in GBI, and they had really no other choice but to arrest them, to do the right thing and get after these guys and arrest them and take, like you said, the first step of justice for Ahmaud.
Yahya writes tonight, off with their heads. What was the victim doing wrong but running while black? It's 2020 America. Brian, how concerned are you? That's the obvious issue that's going through all of this, right? Is the racial aspect of it is a huge problem. Your reaction when you first heard this story?
Stay out of Alabama. All trips to Alabama will be canceled. It's shocking to me in 2020 that this type of thing can happen, and that prosecutors would be behind it in the sense that they would put a positive spin on this. When you look at that district attorney's letter and how he spins it to say that these two men, armed individuals, had to defend themselves against an unarmed black kid is pretty shocking to me. And what's really shocking too is the way that the McMichael said, we rolled him over to see whether or not he had a gun. Why? Why'd you do that? You already said that you didn't shoot him because he had a gun. So if he had a gun, I think their story would have been completely different. And I think that Mr. McMichaels was going back to his police officer days and trying to use excuses that police officers often make, that often those shootings become justified when they make these excuses. And I think that's what he was going back to. And that's scary too, because that shows that, where did he learn that from? Probably being an officer, and having his connections with the district attorney's office absolutely helped him in this case.
All right. And this did happen in Georgia, but I know you said Alabama.
I apologize.
Make sure. Right. I didn't want to go after Alabama tonight. Rebecca writes, I don't care if he was recognized, even if he was the actual burglar. If he was not in their house, he cannot be shot legally. Definitely a hate crime. Jamie, even if it turns out that he was standing in that construction site, does that matter to you?
No, and that's the point Brian brought up earlier. Here we have a situation where there is a citizen's arrest law in the state of Georgia, but it certainly does not allow for, unreasonable force to be used to detain someone. We've seen cases like this in Georgia and other states all around. Had they thought they'd seen a burglar, they could have said, hey, wait here, and called the police. But at that point in time, That's all they can do. So she's exactly right. It's very insightful.
Spot on. Jamie, Jennifer, and Brian, appreciate it. Thank you so much. Please stay safe. Appreciate your input. And as we leave you tonight, every night I say, don't forget to hug the kids. I'm saying that to you again. And don't forget that Ahmaud Arbery was someone's child. Have a great weekend. Remember, Ahmaud.